Welcome back to the Saskatchewan Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Ron Caroni. This is an episode curtailed perfectly for aspiring real estate investors. If you know nothing about real estate investing, this is a great first interview to start with. Amanda goes over the 4 pillars that you should really look at getting in place before you start your journey. Hope you enjoy.
This is the Saskatchewan Real Estate Podcast, the show that highlights Saskatchewan real estate. Looking to buy your first house, your next investment property? Subscribe to never miss an episode. Here's your host, Ron Caroni.
Hello and welcome back to the Saskatchewan Real Estate Podcast, your home for all things Saskatchewan and all things real estate. This week we are focusing a little bit more on real estate investing. This is going to be a really great episode if you are a person who is considering investing in real estate, but you don't really know where to start. And here to help me walk us through the entire process, or at least the early beginnings of that, we have Amanda Bolin, a real estate investor from Saskatoon. Amanda, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me, Ron. It's always good to connect. I love catching your show. You get such a variety on your show. It's fabulous.
Yes, and you were actually a past guest on the show, so we'll include that in the show notes of the video or audio podcast, however you're taking this in, and you can catch Amanda's other episode. But for anyone who doesn't know you, Amanda, just give us a brief introduction of yourself and your involvement in real estate.
So my name's Amanda Bolin. We're local to the Saskatoon market. My husband and I invest in multifamily real estate. We do some development, land development, and some new construction. We strongly have, we've built our portfolio over the last few years. And I think a lot of that has grown from our business background. So where we're newer to real estate, we aren't new to business.
And that would be so important, especially beginning, because so much of real estate investing is running a real estate business. So having that background was probably really key in your success that you've been having.
For sure.
So Amanda, you recently presented at a real estate meeting that we attended in Saskatoon, and I thought it was just fantastic, and it's the reason that I'm having you on today. And you did some really great points on things that you should touch on when you're looking for the right renters and tenants. And I thought it'd be really great to have you on and touch on kind of the 4 pillars of what someone needs to have in place before they start real estate investing. So we'll kind of work through our 4 pillars, and I'll ask you just to kick it off with number 1 here. What was like the one pillar that a person should have before they start real estate investing?
I think the number 1 thing that anyone needs is financial goals. And it's not just, bigger is better, what someone else is doing, but actually buckling down and analyzing for yourself and taking stock, if you will, of exactly where you're at, where you want to be. And maybe if you have a partner with your spouse, thinking about where you'd like to go. And I think the thing to realize is that these don't have to be some extravagant, you don't have to want to be like Grant Cardone right out of the gate if you're familiar with him. But it's like, what is it that you want? What does your ideal life look like? And what do the financial goals look like that go with that? And really hash those things out. And I think the other thing to be aware of with this is that those goals can change over time. So it's not something that is set in stone for your entire life. Maybe it's something now you're young and starting out and you've got, a few years out, you have no kids yet if you're planning to have kids down the road, but maybe you're just you or you and your spouse or partner. And so it's just looking at what your current goals are, maybe next 3 to 5 years, where do you want to be at? And then start to make that plan your launch base. But you really need to know why you're doing what you're doing.
Exactly. And I find a lot of people miss out on that you have to understand that during those hard times, there has to be like a strong reason for whatever you're doing. And if there's that strong why, if there's that big financial goal, that kind of guiding Northern Star, that's an excellent way for someone to get into this to say, I understand why I'm doing it. So I really enjoy that one. Let's move on to pillar number 2, Amanda.
Next one is building a strong financial foundation. We talk lots about education. That's important. We'll get to that. But a strong financial foundation. And so when you're taking stock of your financial goals, take a deep dive where you're sitting. What are we looking at? Do we have good debt? Do we have bad debt? What tools do we have now? What understanding do we have right now in finances? And how do we fill those gaps? So if we have a pile of debt piled up, as a mortgage broker, that's really tricky to qualify for a mortgage with a massive car payment or a big credit card bill. And you clear that out, it gives you a lot of freedom. But the other thing that it does is when it comes to investing or business in general, having a safety net or a slush fund, reserves, call it what you want, it makes a big difference on how we approach things or make decisions. So if your back's up against the wall and it's fight or flight, you sometimes don't always make the most sound decision. You just panic and do whatever you can to try and get out of the situation or run away from the situation. If you have funds or cash available or something that you're just not like fight or flight, it completely changes. You can make a more calm decision, better choices. So I think the big one is, get some cash piled up, get rid of those bad debt things, those bad financial habits that can't carry over into your business. If you already have bad financial habits in a small scale, if you amplify that and grow a business, it's going to make its way into that as well.
I think that's probably my favorite one on the list that we're going to touch on today. And I'll kind of use a metaphor that if you're playing blackjack and you come to the table and you only have $50 and the buy-in is $25, that means that you only really get 2 hands of blackjack in order to make it. And if you can't stay in the game long enough to realize those odds, and real estate is a game where the odds are in your favor, but you have to be able to play it long enough in order to take advantage of those winnings, if you will. So I love that. Come to the table with a strong financial background, get yourself playing more and more hands, and eventually you will win out. Let's go on to number 3. Let's go on to number 3, Amanda. What do we have?
Education. It seems so cliche, but it's really, really important. And I think education, often in the real estate world especially, we get so tunnel visioned into thinking the only thing we need to read is real estate books. But I think it goes so much beyond that. There's business, there's mindset, and then of course there's real estate. So I think it's just deep diving into, the type of business that you want to run, and real estate is a business. So even if you're running a small not multifamily, it could be just rental properties, 1 or 2 units, that kind of thing. It's still like its own micro business. It isn't passive in the way that everyone thinks that you just set it and forget it. And so you can run it that way, but I think you can really optimize those smaller portfolios by running it properly like a business. And the only way we build that is either we have the background in that, somebody's taught us, or we spent the time learning it. And so I think in any aspect, anytime we learn how other people in different industries are doing things and we figure out a way how to apply that into ours, or if it makes sense, we can really learn from people outside of our own sphere and maybe where we're always parked, all the business insides and outs. And then the other thing too is mindset. And it's just, getting confident in who you are and where you're headed, and really leaving some of those limiting mindsets that's maybe saying like, you're not cut out for this, you're not ready. And I think that's a big one, is we often don't do things in life because of maybe that mental conversation we're having. And so that mindset component plays into the education as well.
So Amanda, if we are looking for some specific books that you would recommend for someone to start with on that education piece, do you have any recommendations?
Yeah, I think 2 books. So there's one called Profit First, and there's the second one is Profit First for Real Estate Investors. And I know I said not specific to real estate, but if you're kind of reading through the book Profit First and you have that question mark in your mind, how does this apply to real estate, or how can I apply this to my real estate investing? It's a really great way to take the original key concepts from that book and then reread it in the Profit First for Real Estate Investing to see, okay, that's how I implement this in a real estate investing business, whether that's 1 or 2 units or beyond. And then for mindset, I think a really great one is Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. And it's one of my favorites because he was a plastic surgeon who specialized obviously in reconstruction, things like that. His favorite thing to do was help people maybe after a major accident or incident, and to kind of bring them back to as normal as possible. And he discovered that sometimes he would give somebody like the most drastic transformation and they couldn't see it. And then other times he gave somebody what seemed to him like a small transformation compared to what he's used to, and they just felt like their whole world was changed. And so obviously it came down to a mindset thing. And so then he dove into the actual, our brain and how it works and how we perceive things and maybe what's different. So I think it's a really cool one. It's a bit older of a book. I think it's just dynamite in any area, but it's an amazing mindset book. So one of my favorites.
I'll add it to the reading list. That does sound like a good one. So we've touched on 3 of them. We have set our financial goals. We've built our strong financial foundation. We've now educated ourselves. What's the last pillar on our list as we're getting ready for real estate investing?
I think the last one is networking and building our team. Except for we need to take the word networking and throw it out and replace that with build relationships.
Right.
And so if you just think of networking not as this awkward thing that it's, we're getting to know people, we're finding ways to provide them value, you're getting out and we're being sociable. So that can be real estate meetups, that could be business groups. I think there's some that are part of like BNI groups, things like that. That could be just getting on social media and actually being social, like commenting, connecting with people. Could be people in your market, could be beyond. I've met a ton of people through social media that have turned out to be valuable relationships, both that we've been able to provide value to, and then also people have been able to come alongside us. And so I think that's probably the biggest one, especially when you're starting out, you don't know all the things. Having a good connection to somebody who understands mortgages will do you a world of good in preparing to qualify for that. And the same thing could be, you've built that relationship maybe with an accountant or a bookkeeper or whatever it is that you might have down the road. But I think the big thing is getting that team together, but not just like knocking on doors and being like, hey, we need you to be a part of our team.
And I think having, if I can expand upon it, having a long-term mindset about networking. If you're going to join or partake in any networking group or anything that has, relationships with it, take the view that I'm probably going to know these people for a very long time. And so there is a little bit of a commitment to getting to know people, getting to know what they do. If you're going to a networking group and the only thing you're thinking about is I'm going to hand out 100 business cards, it's very likely that 99 of those business cards are just going to end up automatically in the trash. You have to show up. You have to be committed to other people within those networking circles. And so I love that of changing it from networking to building relationships, because I think you're going to, the fruit from that tree is going to bear you a lot more crop than just going there and thinking, I'm just going to introduce myself to a bunch of people. Anything else to add on the topic of beginning real estate investing, Amanda?
I see the final one. It's kind of weird, laughing bonus tip, don't be weird. And that kind of ties back into the relationship building thing. It's not walking up to people and be like, hey, want to network? Because it's just like this super awkward, like, what does that even mean?
You mean that's not how you do it? Yeah.
That's totally how we met. I'm just kidding. But no, it's just, like you said, that long-term perspective and building those relationships, not expecting stuff out of people right now, like right there and then, but realizing that it goes 360 essentially. It's a big circle. So, as you provide value or you're a part of that, or I guess that familiarity is a good way of putting it, is if you keep making those contacts and your face is constantly there, you get that familiarity with people, which builds trust. And you start to build that long relationship. So think of it like friendships in the business world, and you never know where that can take elsewhere outside of your specific business as well.
Absolutely. I really like that. Don't be weird. That's just a general life rule. We'll put that as a catch-all. Any last piece of advice to offer, Amanda? I usually like to throw this one at the end, but a piece of advice to a younger version of yourself. I know you've given us a lot of great advice here, but just any last words of wisdom?
I'd say just get started. Figure out a way to get started and go for it. And I know we talk about it, wish we would have started earlier. Not so much the wish anymore, but just had we have known that we were capable or that it wasn't as complicated as it seemed to be, if we'd just taken those first steps, the same way we had done anything else, whether that's pursuing a career in maybe you're going to school or university or something like that. It's something you don't have to abandon what you're doing now in order to start. And so I think the bigger thing I would say is just start sooner, because it's like we touched on earlier, it's getting into the game and the longevity, and you want to be able to be a long-term player. So it's not a rush to build a huge portfolio in your first year. It's that long play. How are we going to build a stable portfolio that's going to be lasting through market cycles.
Wonderful. Amanda, if people are looking to get in touch with you, is there any platforms that you'd like to expand upon? If people would like to reach out to you, what's the best way to do so?
You can find me on Facebook, Amanda Bolin, or my Instagram account is at Multifamily Amanda.
Wonderful. As always, lots of great value in what you're saying, Amanda. Really appreciate you making the time today and sharing it with us.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Ron. I really appreciate you having me on again.
Take care, Amanda.
Have a great day.
Thanks for checking out this week's episode of the Saskatchewan Real Estate Podcast. I hope you found some value here. If you did, make sure to like and subscribe to this video. If you're thinking of real estate investing in the Saskatchewan market and you're looking to get started with a mortgage pre-approval, I would be happy to help you out with that. Look for my details in the show notes of this video or audio podcast. Until next week, I'm Ron Caroni, your Saskatchewan mortgage professional. Bye for now.